Hi, this is Ken from FST Performance Carburetors, and I'm here to show you a new line of carbs that we have and walk you through an installation on this beautiful '69 Chevelle. What makes this installation a little bit unique is we're running an aftermarket overdrive electronic transmission. We've just installed the transmission controller. So the important part of that controller is that we're going to need to hook this TPS signal up to the transmission. That's going to need to see a 5-volt signal, and just on this carb, you know, it worked great, but you know, just you know, it doesn't have any place to hook that up. So we're going to pull this off and you know, get on the new carb, and then we're going to show you how to dial in and set the air-fuel ratio on that, get your idle set, and you know, hook it up. We're using a billet fuel log on that we offer through FST as well. And we'll put all the links to those parts along with the video. So the difference between these two carbs is this one had the vacuum on the front, and we've got the vacuum hooked up on the back. So let me just remove this plug. So basically, we've just got to hook up the brake booster on the back, vacuum nipple. Always easier to hook that up before you put it on. And we've got a good gasket on there already. Now we adjust each one of these carburetors at the factory. So each one of our carbs is run on an engine and dialed in. So when you get them, you know that they've all been started, they all work, and the floats are adjusted, and you're getting something that's built here in Detroit and is going to run right out of the box. So as long as you've got your fuel pressure set at 6.5 psi, the only thing that you're going to have to do is maybe set your idle, you know, because your different cubic inches are going to require a different setting for your idle, for your throttle blades, and you're going to have to possibly change the you know, the idle setting, the air fuel setting on your mixture screws. But we'll walk through that after we get it fired up. But there's really not that much to it. And then with a good air fuel meter or some track time, you'll get the jetting set. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do after you put on a carb is, and the most important, is check for fuel leaks. So if Phil, turn it on. And also a good idea is the floats, and you could check the float level and make sure that the bowls are filled up by looking at the sight glasses. And if your fuel pressure is right, if it's set to 6.5 psi, which is what we set them here in the factory when we run these on the test engines, is 6.5 psi. We set the floats at that pressure, and that'll get you, the fuel will be right in the center of the sight glasses. So if you have the proper fuel pressure, you'll have your fuel level will be right in the middle of the sight glasses. And if you can't really notice it, just wiggle a little bit on the fender and you'll see the fuel rock back and forth. And these are perfect. So we know we got the fuel pressure set right and we've got no leaks. So we're gonna start it up, and basically when we start it up, we set the calibration just a little bit high, and that depends on the cubic inch of your motor. So if it's a little low, if it's a little high, you're gonna have to do a little bit of adjustment. So the to set the idle speed, it's a combination of air fuel ratio and idle speed, but the major adjustments will be with this screw right here, and that'll open and close the butterflies, and then the air fuel will be these screws on the metering blocks. If you don't have two metering blocks, you could just adjust in the front. Some of them have just a metering plate in the back, but on these carbs, they'll have dual So you'll be able to adjust them in the front and the back. But turning them in makes them leaner, turning them out makes them richer, and a little bit at a time, you know, it makes quite a bit of adjustment. But usually a good setting, if you don't know where you are and you need to go back to a factory adjustment, is to bottom them all the way out, turn them all the way in, and then come out 1.5 turns. That'll get you up and running on pretty much any setting. But when we send them out from the factory, they're just as they should be, or maybe just a little bit rich, which is safe. You know, not overly rich. You could run them the way they are. If you don't have any way to check them, they'll be good to go. But if you do have an air fuel meter, which is a great investment, then you can go in and dial them in perfect. We like them anywhere from, you know, 13.5 to, you know, depending on your motor. You could play around with it. 12.5 is great, 13.5, you know, you really have to see what your motor likes in and out of gear. But we're gonna go start this thing up. We're gonna let it get a little bit of heat in it, and then we're gonna set it up. So, all right, Phil, give it a fire. All right, so that was a really nice first start for a motor that has no fuel in it, and that was the first fire up. So, fuel level is still very nice, and give it a second to warm up before we adjust anything. So let me check the idle speed and RPM. It sounds like it's a little bit high, but again, let's let it get a little bit of heat before we change anything. And let me check the air-fuel ratio. All right, so right now we're at 12.0 air-fuel ratio, and we're idling at about 900 RPM. So this motor's got a big cam. It's not terribly awful. We'll see how that is in and out of gear. And it looks like we could just lean this motor out just a little bit. It's just a little bit rich. So what I'll probably do on this one is I'll just turn in the primaries just a touch. So about, I don't know, maybe a half turn in. And then take a look. Yeah, and Phil's giving me the thumbs up. We're at like 13.0, and we'll drop it in gear and we'll see how the air-fuel ratio is from there. Oh, Phil, drop it in gear. All right, so in gear, there's relatively no change, so that's pretty nice. So I'd say this is ready to, let me drop the idle down just a touch on this motor and see how it likes it. You can start hearing the camshaft a little more. And check the air fuel one more time. Yeah. Okay, that sounds really nice. Okay, so we're idling about 13.0. This is a fairly aggressive camshaft on a 383. And idling right now at about 800 RPM. So I think we're pretty good. Fuel pressure set, and TPS is hooked up. So that's a nice installation of our new Billet X-Treme carburetor.